there's not that many around right now. The bird feeders were all empty for a minute, and the bird baths were empty. I've just been filling them. Give you a little tour on that. And I just saw the hummingbird right before I hit this. They're so quick. I was trying to get it in the shot. And usually it's feeders hanging here. I'll do one about the hummingbird specifically. We got these little feeders full of like sunflower seeds mostly right now. There's all different kinds that we got. A lot of them we're filling with sunflower. They love these things. This one's a little grain blend. Need to fill that one. And these things, we got these things everywhere. And the bird baths. Just fill those up. It's a bit of a chore filling them, but not too bad. You gotta do it though every now and then and clean them out, because they'll get like that. They'll just get funky. That one's been sitting for a while. It's all moldy and green, and little birds, they just like to poop in their own water supply. It's kind of gross. Well, what are you gonna do? They are just like that. They like to have these little, you gotta put these little rocks in the middle so they got something to stand on. And like seriously, we got them everywhere. My mother's a little bird for sure. She's a hummingbird. And the neighbors are gangsta. Don't they wish? And anyway, I don't know. That's a few of the little things we got for them. We got them everywhere, little bird feeders, and a lot of our plants here are for the hummingbirds. And yeah, we'll do a separate one about that. We've grown a few things for them to eat. Some of the stuff likes to sprout up around the bird feeders sometimes. You know, they're pretty into eating whatever. I'm pretty good at planting those seeds. I guess, you know, they all got different stuff that they like. But they're pretty important, pretty good to have in the garden. They're great at growing the gardens in the forests, and old school helpers like that. You gotta have them around. Really, that's part of what they're doing, and part of how the forest gets grown. We have these little birds. Like I said, my mother's a little bird. I'm a heath. Makes a lot of sense if you know anything about those. What happens when you clear cut a forest? You know, a lot of times the soil gets all eroded and everything's just kind of desolated when you clear cut, you know, and the mycelium can't live and the bacteria is not thriving, and let's find some better lighting. You know, it's just a mess, and we're figuring that out. People are figuring that out, partly because money. You can't make money continuously. It's not sustainable to just clear cut, because then you don't have the mycelium, you don't have them, you know, the mycorrhizals, the microorganisms, all that stuff. Oh, check it, another bird feeder. They're just everywhere. We got them everywhere. And so then what happens, you know, without the mycorrhizal, there tend to be, I guess, the ericoid fungi, because that's what the Ericaceae, the heaths, will pair with. And so they'll come back in first in a lot of places. And in England, it's really big. I used to go on about how heaths like to grow in the hinterlands of England. Small flowering shrub that grows in the hinterlands of England was what I knew as a kid. And that's true. They grow all over the place. There's a bunch on the west coast. The manzanitas are everywhere. I used to live in the manzanitas before I knew they were a heath. And whatever, they tend to, they make the bellflowers, and they make little berries for the little birds. And they can thrive in the really poor soils that are really eroded. They don't really need a whole lot of nutrients. They don't really like a whole lot of nutrients. The heaths like to be kind of wild, and they do better kind of wild. They don't do that well in really rich soil and well tended. What are you gonna do? Live kind of wild, slightly. But so they come in and they do their thing, and they start making the little bellflowers and the little berries for the little birds, and the little birds start coming in and they start eating those. And they do what they do. They drop stuff everywhere. They make a bit of a mess. Then, they're pooping in the soil, which helps the soil. They start spreading seeds around, which helps things, reintroduce other things just because they're around, and they're pooping, planting seeds. They're great at that. Little compost makers and seed spreaders, which, most animals are. I think that's part of why we're here, that plants want us to move them around. So they start doing that, and then, the heaths are dropping, the bushes are dropping all their leaves, and so it starts to make a bit of topsoil again, and things start breaking down, and then other mycelium and different microorganisms can start living in that soil again. You really, really need that top layer, and they'll start building it, and they're totally working together to do that. And so there's some places in England especially where they come in and they manage the heath, and they come through and they cut out the trees, and if you don't manage the heath, then it tends to want to turn back into a forest. Go figure. So that's pretty cool. That's one way is the little birds are helping to reseed and plant the forest. It's pretty awesome. They're doing what they do and have been doing for a long time. And another part of it is the song, which, it's really nice to have. It's nice to have them around just for that, just for the noise, drown out some of these people working in machines and the highway and all that. And a lot of us now, or maybe not a lot, but some of us are getting into playing the nature sounds on these, technologies. I gotta stop doing this. I look in this and it's like a mirror. Oh, is my hair doing that? Jeez. Slightly wild. And yeah, so the little birds that come in, and they're singing their songs, right? Which it's nice to have for us. It's soothing to the ears, and it's one of those things, though. It's like the sound of running water, and you can run that on your your computer or phone or whatever, and it does something that's like deep in the human psyche, that's like really relaxing, because you live by the water. Human beings live by the water. You're a human being for most of the history. That's what you do. You live by the water because you gotta have it to bathe and to drink and to all kinds of things, right? You need the water. You have fresh flowing water. That means life. And so we've gone so far away from that and made it so convenient that we have it, running out of the tap, and we don't have that sound. But then without it, we don't do as well. It's something in our minds that just relaxes us, whether we have it or not, or those little fountains that just make the bubbling water. And isn't that so relaxing? Just, it's deep in your psyche, whether you realize why that is or not. And I think similar thing with the bird songs. Another cool part of what they're doing and what that's about, I found where it was one of those things too, kind of full circle, where I was researching and finding out about these little boxes you can buy that emit these frequencies. And it's kind of like, they have those little boxes that emit a frequency and it keeps the cockroaches and the rats and stuff away because it's this really, really high pitch that you can't hear unless you're Thai, and then you're freaking out because you can hear it. Most of us can't. And there's a lot of sound that we can't hear that's not in our range. We're human beings. We're like perceiving this little slice of reality, and all these other things happening around us. And so this is one of those frequencies that you won't really hear it, I don't think, but if you play it by your seeds, when you have a seed tray, your seeds will all sprout. It gets, some like 99% seed germination rate, where with a lot of different seeds, you'll have some of them will sprout and some of them won't. And you have a certain percentage that's average, and you play this tone, and it's like, whoa, everything sprouts. Pretty cool, right? And so kept researching, kept looking into that, diving down little rabbit holes, following that white rabbit, and find out that actually those frequencies are constantly emitted in bird songs, and that we're not able to hear them, that there's a part of the song that we do hear in our little slice of reality that we're experiencing and not filtering out in our everyday, regular 21st century consciousness. And so that's pretty cool. The birds are doing that. That's part of their song. That's part of their magic. They are singing. They're making that vibration that helps to sprout and germinate the seeds that they planted. I don't know, I think that's pretty cool, actually. And one of those ways where, we get so advanced, all this crazy cool technology that's really, really awesome and can revolutionize our lives, and it was already there, it's already built in, we just had to get so far away from it that we kind of went full circle and can find, oh, that was already there. That machine is actually called a bird, and it's free, and it's built in, and it's part of nature, and it's beautiful, and it just flies around and does its thing. And just, feed it, give it some water. You don't need to be buying these little boxes, but, if you want to, that's a pretty cool option too. If you're trying to sprout seeds, I guess, in some like apartment in the inner city and you don't have birds or an option for that, might be something you want to look into if you're trying to sprout stuff on a little windowsill in your high-rise apartment. Maybe check that out. But if you're somewhere that you can just have little birds and invite little birds into your life and existence, do that, because free technology that's built in, it's organic, it's sustainable, it's just nature doing its thing. Little birds sing their songs, and again, they're nice. It's a whole lot nicer to hear than all the noise pollution of our fancy technologies. And I don't know, just this air conditioner fan that people saw, and they're constantly blowing their leaves or something over there. I don't even know what. It's like they walk around with a leaf blower all day, every day, or something. What are you even doing making all that racket? I don't get it. Bird song, way nicer. So that's something we do here, and have and continue to do. Speaking of technological noise pollution, that's a mechanical bird just tearing it up. It's great. We love it so much. And I guess, some of them will be eating bugs and stuff too. Chickens are cool like that. Chickens and ducks, where the grandparents and the great-grandparents always had them on the farm, and they'll wander around and they'll eat a bunch of your bugs, the grasshoppers and this and that, and all these different bugs that are going to be eating your plants. I keep getting the hummingbirds. They want that. I gotta do their feeder next. But yeah, ducks are cool like that. And chickens, that's part of what's cool about having them in the garden. They will eat your bugs that are gonna eat your food plants, and they'll turn them into compost for you. So, you know, that's pretty handy. That's pretty awesome. And then make eggs, which are pretty great. Nice friends to have in the garden. I think the duck eggs are gotta be some of the most delicious ever. Although I've never really had any. We've talked about it. It's kind of tricky and civilization sometimes. I don't know if we can back here. Maybe we can. And then you gotta watch out because other creatures will eat them and put them in and stuff. And we just kind of let the birds roam free. We got a couple little houses that sometimes the wren lives in, but it kind of likes to just live in the hanging plant and have little babies in there. And so that's pretty cool. Little birds. And then we get the big birds coming through. We got a lot of hawks lately. And you don't have to feed them, they just eat the little birds, which fam's not so into. And my grandparents were not into. They'd give me a .22 and tell me to go shoot them. One time I did, and then I went to church, and it was totally illegal, and I shot this hawk, and then I went to church as a kid, and I just racked with guilt. Nobody cared. Just go kill the hawk. Here's a gun, kid. Get to work. So not super into it. Here we just let them fly around and do their thing. I dig the owls. The owls are good helpers. They're eating all kinds of critters, the rats and the snakes and all kinds of stuff. They're cool. They're super cool to have around. Gotta love the owls. And I'm thinking about building a house for them. I haven't ever done that, but their big old tree fell down. I keep thinking about it, but I don't know too much about that, the making of houses. You just feed them and they figure the rest out. You know, we get all kinds of the blue jays and the cardinals and the finches and your sparrows, all kinds of stuff that come through seasonally and just stop through on their seasonal migrations. And obviously the hummingbirds, we'll do them separate. They got their own, they're just nectar. They're into nectar. A lot of birds, they're into these sunflower seeds, which they're pretty cheap, you know, as far as seeds go. Not as cheap as they used to be. I think with inflation, they're like, what, like 3 tuppence a bag now or something? But, you know, they're nice to have, and a lot of things like them. I'm not incredibly into the sunflowers as far as mass produced. I kind of like the seeds. They're high in estrogen. I still kind of like to blend them with stuff. The thing with sunflowers, they really deplete the soil of nutrients. See that little hummingbird? Yeah, just took off. They're fast. They speed of light. We'll cover the hummingbirds, and that's just reminding me I gotta put their feeder back because they're looking for it. I got the rest taken care of, but that's about all you need, and you don't need a million of them. But if you put one tray out with seeds, you put one little dish of water out, it's also helpful for the bats, and they're gonna want to be able to swoop that water. Although usually if there are bats, it's because there's stagnant water with the mosquitoes and all that, and that's a different subject. I do think they poke holes in our little pears. You know, little birds. And they've been eating our grapes like crazy, and just they do make a bit of a mess, but they're nice to have around. They're part of the circle of life, and they're planting the garden and the forest and singing the wonderful magical songs, making that vibration, bringing life into being. There's one thing that's kind of cool too on the note of the song. You know, there's the, I was saying that vibration that they make that we can't hear, and that's helping germinate the seeds, and that's cool. They all got their different song, right? I'm not great at identifying them. Except the Blue Jays, you hear them. If you don't put the peanuts out, they come at like 7, 8 in the morning. They let you know. They scream at you. They're demanding. But it's just an interesting side note that in a climaxed rainforest, when a species goes extinct, then tends to be where another species will pick up that song, and it's like each place has its resonant vibration that just wants to be there, that the song is almost pre-existing, and if that part is left out, then someone else comes in to pick it up and, you know, hold it down, keep it together, keep the whole thing spinning. Hey, little birds, little dogs, sweet.